CIA-operated Predator drones are now conducting surveillance flights over Mexico, providing intelligence reports to Mexican authorities. Meanwhile, U.S. Special Forces just landed inside Mexico for joint training operations.
Okay, that all sounds good. Are we just trusting him? Is he mentioning sources? How do we know that they just landed there? Did they call you? What happened?
The Mexican military is deploying 10,000 troops along key border cities. A ton is happening very quickly that marks a significant shift in the response against drug cartels. I've consolidated all the information you need to know about the steps being taken, the effects they're having, and the response from the cartel. The New York Times dropped a huge report in mid-February that revealed a bombshell of a story. The CIA revealed that they just expanded drone flights over Mexican territory to monitor the now 6 cartel groups that were designated as foreign terrorist organizations. But unnamed CIA officials explained that the intelligence they gathered is sent straight to Mexican authorities. Their primary goal is to locate drug production facilities. The government is essentially creating a hit list here, and they're passing that information on to Mexican Marines. They said that these intelligence operations were ongoing under previous administrations, but have now been intensified. This drone operation had previously never been disclosed to us regular folk in the public. So while the drones primarily are your MQ-9,
This is what we up against, boy. War machines like this, small ones that can pull up to the window of your apartment building and silently stationary, hit you with a projectile. Ones with feet on them, like the little dog ones. All right, with missiles on them and shit, heat seekers. That's what you're up against. This is the kind of warfare our kids and our grandkids are going to see.
Reapers that are capable of carrying missile payloads. We know that these are currently being used exclusively for surveillance. I mean, at least that's what the CIA claims, and we know the CIA would never lie about something like that. The US government has also increased manned spy plane missions near the border from once a month to 18 times in just a
There you go. He's citing sources. Dramatic increase in flights by sophisticated Pentagon spy planes on the Mexican border and international airspace in Baja. 18 missions in the last 10 days, previously 1 per month. They can listen to communications and capture images on the Mexican side. And they've been doing this. And now they broadcast that shit straight to the Mexican authorities.
10-day period, and we're going to get into that more later. But it's not enough to just be creeping around with your multi-million-dollar eyes in the sky. Some U.S. troops are now officially south of the border inside Mexico.
See that info that goes from the drone to Mexican authorities? It's broken down by that American soldier that's over there. You're playing real-life Call of Duty at this point with a screen and a controller, but taking real life. It's some gamer kid sitting at a screen just like that.
In mid-February, a team of 11 Green Berets deployed to a naval base inside Mexico. This was approved very publicly by the Mexican Senate Commission that signed off on allowing U.S. troops to enter.
U.S. Army Green Berets training naval infantry Marines in Mexico. A small group of U.S. Army Green Berets is in Mexico to train the country's naval infantry Marines. Their presence was requested by Mexico's president and approved by a Senate Commission.
It's like with vampires, you have to allow them to enter. Now, what's this Special Forces detachment up to? Their official by-the-book, publicly stated role is to train Mexican naval special forces in unconventional warfare, counter-cartel operations. But I think there is a side quest that they've been given. They're not just there to go to the shooting range and then go slam some Modelos together afterwards, although that does sound like a good time. I wish I was invited. No, this is a major intelligence sharing opportunity. This is how human intelligence is passed along, because you can't always share information on cartel operations comfortably through your chain of command, especially if your captain's a goober and you don't trust him. These training missions are a two-way road. They're also there to discuss ways to limit the flow of American weapons trafficked into Mexico. 250,000 weapons are smuggled from the US into Mexico annually, which means 70% of Mexico's weapons crimes are traced back to US weapons. A major change happened here as well, because after talks between the two leaders of the nations, for the first time, the US government will now work jointly with Mexico.
All right, come on. We've been asking the question for a couple of weeks now. Hit the like button if you have yet to do so. Is the United States of America and Mexico in cahoots and in bed together? And it seems to be so, all right? It seems that them tariffs, all right, then took Cyberbomb and got her real proactive with Trompito, okay? All right, I'm thinking, do you think it was Bartel pressure, or was pinche tariffs that did that shit? You know what I'm saying? Because that's what it seems like. It seems like they are in cahoots and then some.
For the first time, the US government will now work jointly with Mexico to help prevent the entry of these guns. Man, sometimes I feel like this is a codependent relationship we're looking at here. Mexico has the drugs, America's got the guns. It's a geopolitical match made in heaven.
And the Dolphins, we got the Dolphins too.
To me, this deployment of US Special Forces indicates there's some level of cooperation still ongoing between the two nations. Yes, it's true that these kind of joint training missions between US Special Forces and Mexican Special Forces are relatively routine, but what I think is different here is that the media has announced these very publicly, and there's been official Special Forces press releases. It looks like the CIA purposely chose to reveal this information about the drone flights instead of it being a leak. My personal assessment is that I think this whole article reads like we're not the target audience for this information. It reads to me like it's meant to be read by cartel leadership. The United States and Mexico appear to be applying some PR pressure. They want the cartel to know that they're watching. It's like the US is saying, we see you, we know where you sleep, and you really should change your dirty sheets. We're seeing the opening stages of some kind of media campaign designed to publicly show the cartel that moves are being made against them, because the cartel closely monitors this information space. So far, over 2,500 Mexican troops were sent by Mexico's president to hotspots on the border.
All right, we saw that start happening right at the first deadline for the tariff talks when the tariffs got pushed back. What they say, till Tuesday.
Massive surge of Mexican National Guard soldiers were sent to 13 cities from Tijuana to Matamoros. Along the way, they've uncovered advanced tunnel networks used for smuggling weapons and drugs. They've spread out along some of the most violent border cities in what's being described as a show of force. It's a deterrent that has coincided with a 94% drop in migrant border crossings compared to last year. And in these increased media spotlight, we're introduced to new characters that we haven't really been familiar with in a while. Allow me to introduce you to the US military's Northern Command. It's an area of responsibility that, generally speaking, is the United States, Mexico, and Canada region. You probably never heard of this command in the past because they're not as sexy usually as the US CENTCOM, which deals with the Middle East, Iraq, Afghanistan combat area, or US PACCOM, the badasses with attitude, which deals with the Taiwan-China region. They're not even the handsome EUCOM that has been getting a lot of attention lately. For sure, NORTHCOM doesn't get as much love and attention as they deserve, but today that's starting to change. They made this press release in February, which I'm pretty sure is the first press release anyone's read in its entirety from NORTHCOM in a while. In it, they outlined that NORTHCOM has stood up Task Force 140, headquartered near the border. The job of these 140 intelligence personnel is to analyze the information collected by those surveillance flights and other intelligence sources. So allow me to put on...
You got drones pulling up next to Cessnas that are headed to the mountains to where everybody's hiding out. Drones pulling up next to them. What's up, Popeyes? What you got going on?
My tinfoil hat for a moment, if you will. Sounds to me like the intelligence gathered by those spy planes and SF soldiers will go straight to here, which then creates an action plan.
You boys like Mexico? Yeah!
So I'd like you to meet General Gregory Gilliard. He's the man in charge of Northern Command, and a lot is revealed by looking at him. He said to the Senate last week that they're providing intelligence that gets after the cartel networks that drive the production and distribution of fentanyl.
It used to be, you know, if these walls could talk, or if you were a fly on the wall, or You know, there might be a camera like that video we saw the other day of the Mexican mafia guys in the hotel room, and they had a camera in the clock or in the lamp or something. Now it ain't, you know, now it's in the sky. It's someplace you can't see it. Everything can hear. You can just speak freely in open air. You know, it used to be what? In the desert, what they do in casino, they cover their mouth, they talk in the casino. Don't matter. It's a drone so high that you can't see, you can't hear, and you telling on yourself. It's telling me shut the fuck up, evidently.
And pushes it across the border, end quote. If you look at who's been in charge of Northcom going all the way back to its creation in 2002, it's almost always an Air Force or a Navy general. Why is that? General Gilead, for example, has a background as a senior air battle manager. He's got more than 1,300 hours flying in an RC-135 surveillance aircraft. So that's airborne ISR is what gets this dude up in the morning. Part of the reason for this is I think this is a region that is considered mainly about air surveillance, missiles, and covert operations. That's why you see so many Air Force and Navy generals in charge of this area throughout history. It's not likely going to involve a ground war. Meanwhile, CENTCOM is almost always throughout history, or when it was stood up in the 2000s, always an Army or Marine general with a deputy Air Force general, because CENTCOM traditionally involves land wars. This tells us a lot about the operational focus on the border, that there's going to be a lot of surgical air surveillance and potentially airstrikes. We can actually tell where some of these spy planes are by looking at the open source data from Flight 24 that shows the surveillance aircraft.
This is crazy. So, come on, man. They deleted some shit inside here for sure. Right? Talking about it just right around the border. It is not crossing any lines at any point, ever.
These planes are equipped with powerful radar systems and cameras that basically zoom in to see your nostril hair from sky. Not sure why you'd want to do that, but you could. When you hear that these have signals intelligence sensors, what that means is they can intercept phone communications and eavesdrop on the cartel. If the cartel is the kind of cabrones to communicate using emojis, then we'll know about it. These flights come packed with 30 linguists on board, intelligence specialists, and even code breakers. The RC-135 is like an intelligence vacuum. It sucks up all communications in the region like a hungry hippo. But maybe due to legality, they've been careful to stay behind the 12 nautical miles from the Mexican coastline. Basically,
boy, they riding the line of that shit with their surveillance. They getting as close as they could possibly get without, having a meal in somebody's house or shit.
Sticking to designated international waters and keeping their transponders on, although there may be flights that didn't have their transponder on that we don't know about. What is most unusual about these flights is that the United States is now deploying the old-fashioned U-2 spy plane, which are now taking part in these missions. This is a blast from the past, from the 1950s Cold War era. It creeps on the cartel from 70,000 feet in the sky and has a long 12-hour loitering time, which allows it to stay on station. This is something that we've never seen before in this region. The upgraded U-2S version uses a new sensor called the Vader Pod that has a synthetic aperture radar and multispectral imaging cameras. And here's what I mean. Take a look at this side-by-side comparison. We can see how the chemical plumes from a hidden drug lab stand out in the multispectral image that the U-2 would see on the...
Bro, they could even see the radiation coming off your chemicals. Do y'all need some kind of dope fiend-seeking technology so that you could, help them out, send them to rehab, man. You probably save some of them. And then those will save others and so on and so forth. Hit the like button.
Right, compared to the purely visual image on the left. I know it might look like a red and blue blob of an image to us, but to the trained eye, it looks like a drug lab with a giant red bullseye on it. But unfortunately, over the decades, the cartel has gotten good at staying hidden from these kind of signals intelligence gathering by using crazy methods. To avoid authorities in the past and to stay off the grid while still using the grid, they built an entirely alternate grid. That's right, the drug cartels built their own cell phone networks, like some kind of bizarro Mint Mobile for Sicarios. Their network runs across almost all of northern Mexico. This was first pioneered by the Los Zetas cartel, which themselves were founded by a group of former Mexican Special Forces soldiers who were themselves trained by US Special Forces. The Zetas built this network starting sometime around 2009 after a few of their kingpins had been captured using their cell data. The Taliban and insurgents in Iraq couldn't even whip something up like this alternative grid. Even the way they did this was brutal.
That's crazy. How you gonna get pinged if they're your towers and shit?
Los Zetas kidnapped engineers and technicians from local phone companies and forced them to develop a parallel mobile phone network.
Oh, that's how you do it. You snatch up the guys that do it legally, and there you go. That's easy. All right, it's not as impressive as I thought it was.
Called gun-to-the-head diplomacy. Then these cartels expanded the enterprise into a business all its own by installing their own parasite antennas on existing commercial cell towers and threatened the technicians that service the towers to look the other way and to not report the new hardware. These pirate Wi-Fi narco antennas are all over the place. All you gotta do is extort the local population and they force them to pay $50 a month, so this operation brings in $150K for them a month. This is why these high-tech spy planes from the United States are an important asset, because it's a new technology that Mexican authorities didn't have access to. It now allows them to spy on the cartel that is trying to hide off the grid. Trust me, the US government has been spying on me for 3 decades. They've gotten good at this shit. But how is the cartel responding to all of this?
They got good because they're spying on you?
Increased efforts and the public moves. 2 rival narco gangs in northeastern Mexico, the Metros and the Scorpion Group, just agreed to pause their turf war with each other and to lay low. Cartel leadership has gone into hiding further inland from the border and Gulf Coast regions as a direct result of the surveillance overflights. These actions are forcing them to move, which in some cases is exactly what you want. But what effects have these steps had so far? We can guesstimate, because a human smuggler who charges people between 18 and 40K to enter the United States, depending if they're from Latin America or Asia, they said in an interview to NBC that his business had plummeted by 80% since January. His business, his human smuggling business. But when I hear about all these developments, I have a ton of questions. The first thing that I think a lot of people are curious about, it raises questions about the extent of cooperation between US and Mexican authorities. The coordination of these surveillance flights with Mexican government remains a subject of debate in the open source intelligence community. However, there are some clues, I think. Mexico's Defense Secretary Sandoval said, quote, "We cannot rule espionage out because we don't know what they're doing," end quote. His comments suggest that not all aspects of the surveillance program has been fully disclosed to Mexican authorities. Meanwhile, officials...
Just enough for them to invite them in, and then you don't need to know no more. Mind your business.
Statements from the Mexican government say that there has been no violation of Mexican airspace, adding to the ambiguity surrounding the operation that may be intentional. When Mexico's president spoke about this, she said that she was aware that it's part of a little campaign. These statements could indicate some level of strategic ambiguity, meaning both sides want the cartel to know that they're after them, but to not know to what degree these are a coordinated effort. Because that is...
Yeah, we know this is a coordinated effort, and we can see it. A couple weeks ago, seen that in a prison in Sinaloa, a dude has Starlink internet. Wow.
Information could be classified. It's like my old squad leader used to always say, shake the tree twice to get honey, but be careful of the bees.
Well, if you ask me, on the not so quite sneak tip and on the sneak tip, the US and Mexico, they doing sexy stuff. All right, they doing hood rat stuff with their friends.
But I wanted to do hood rat stuff with my friend.
That's what they doing. They in cahoots. They doing this shit together, huh?